the RUMERTIME process, and I came across this quote: "Behind every behavior is a belief."
Whatever setting you go to, whether you're at church, whether you're at school, whether you maybe have
I was able to analyze a little bit more,
bringing about real positive.
In order
changes.
For me to be effective, I have to be reflective. And this training,
I gather an appreciation for reflecting. And I
take it from just something that's inside to getting it in a tangible form, getting it out from
fulfilling and rewarding to see the kids who coming and they see growth in them. They became more reflective in their thinking, to see children grow and not just see but to be a part of it.
What I have learned in camp about RUMERTIME is that it's a process for solving problems we face in our lives.
My stress, and then I begin to enjoy and spend time on the things that really make me happy.
I recommend this training to all age, from kindergarten.
Before you do that thing that you'll regret, or say that thing.
If you breathe and think, you should have this training.
I would recommend this to everyone.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Hello, good people. Welcome to the Access RUMERTIME Conversations. I am Dr. Laria, founding president of GC Score, all the way right here in South Bend, Indiana. And with me today is my co-host, Vanessa. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vanessa Kelly Brew. I am also board member for GC Scored, and I am so excited for our conversation today. So today we are going to be talking about emotions and how they work and how we process those and how they tie into our life story. So I'm so excited about our conversation today. And with that, I would say to you, welcome. Greetings from Elkhart, Indiana, the city with the heart.
Yes. And so you may notice that we're missing Dr. G. She is on a road trip with her husband. And so she's going through some mountains right now, and so she's not able to join us. So, but we're gonna hold it down. Vanessa and I are gonna hold it down.
We got this.
We got this like champions, man. All right. And so we know what we start with. We start with our education segment. And so let me just share my screen. And as you know, this month, October is Global Mental Health Month. And so this is our last episode for this Global Mental Health Awareness Month. And as we, end this very important month, we have some really interesting conversations to talk with you about. And all of you got the email or the link that says emotions are indicators, not disorders. And so we're going to talk some more about that today. Mm-hmm. So let's go to our PowerPoint here, and I will share my screen. Oh boy. I don't know why this thing does that. I had it up all along, and now when it's time to show it, it is not showing. So let us see what happened.
Okay. So while you're doing that, I just want to take this opportunity to say welcome to Lois Lynn. I see Lois Lynn is already in the chat bar, and she's saying hello to both of us. And so Lois Lynn, it's always a pleasure to have you join us. So thank you for showing up today. And for those others of you who are also with us for this conversation.
Yeah. So is it up now?
It is, yes.
All right. So, as I said, World Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're going to move forward with our education segment. Vanessa?
Okay. So, what is GC Scored's mission? So, our mission is to renew minds, to transform lives, and to create safer communities. And we do that by teaching about social emotional health and wellness. And so, what is that? It is a person's ability to recognize, understand, manage, express, and reflect on their thoughts, their interactions, their mindsets, and their emotions as it relates to self and others and different situations. And as one effectively utilizes these skills, they become more equipped and empowered to successfully navigate daily activities such as loving, learning, earning, and being in relationship, building those relationships, and learning to problem solve and adapt to the demands of growth and development.
Yes. So GC Scored has its we have our own definition of mental health. We call it our mental health manifesto. And GC Scored, we approach mental health from a social emotional wellness perspective. We believe that in order to achieve triadic balance meaning mind, body, spirit, in order to achieve that balance, we must intentionally and consciously focus on the roots, which are relational capacity building skills, and the conditions of resources at home, school, work, and community for growth and development to occur. We interpret many symptoms, behaviors, feelings, labels, and diagnoses as fruits, outgrowths, and manifestations of the activities happening at the root level. Okay. And this is going to, we may refer to this again as we continue this conversation, but this is key to some of what we're going to be talking about today. Mental health impacts all. This is, Geneva loves to say this quote by Lynn Friedley. Mental health impacts us all. The promotion of emotional well-being should be a universal public health concern. Everyone has mental health needs, whether or not they have a mental illness, just as everyone has physical health needs, whether or not they are sick. There is no health without mental health, according to the World Health Organization. And Vanessa is going to read to us the definition of mental health according to the World Health Organization.
Sure. And so mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, and can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to contribute to his or her community.
Awesome. Awesome. And then RUMERTIME. What is RUMERTIME? It's an acronym. The first R is recognize, U, understand, M, manage, E, express, R, reflect on your thoughts, T, interactions, I, mindsets, M, and emotions. And so as you rumorize, you're going to recognize your time, you're going to understand your time. So it's a cycle. It's a neural, cognitive, behavioral, social, emotional cycle that you keep going over and over in your everyday life stories. Okay. And so the definition of the RUMERTIME process is that it is a 5-step culturally responsive social emotional problem solving strategy that helps individuals move from a position of intra and interpersonal imbalance to intra and interpersonal balance, and from unconscious living to conscious living. And so that is what we talk about here at the ARC show, the Access Rumor Time Conversation. We focus on, we create context for what we discuss. And that context is the rumor time process, which is, as we said, is a 5-step culturally responsive social emotional problem solving strategy. But what I want us to get into right now is, one is, today is about emotions are indicators, not disorders. Emotions are indicators, not disorders. And in our definition earlier of the GC Scored Manifesto, it talks here about GC Scored approaching mental health from a social emotional wellness perspective. We believe that in order to achieve triadic balance, we must intentionally and consciously focus on the roots, relational capacity building skills, the conditions and resources at home, school, work, and the community for growth and development to occur. We interpret many symptoms, behaviors, feelings, labels, and diagnoses as fruits, outgrowths, and manifestations of the activities happening at the root level. Why is this important? And we also, today is Ask Us Anything. Ask us anything. So if you have questions, we want you to make sure you write it in the chat and let us know what you're thinking and how we can support you in any relational capacity building stories or situations that you have. We also want to highlight our Listening Oasis Wellness Space as we end this month of mental health awareness focus. Reach out to our Listening Oasis Wellness Space. The information is coming up on the screen. And for those of you who may be listening and not watching, it is www.everypeacematters.com/Lows, LOWS. And so our definition, right? We read the definition of the hi Sabrina. We read the definition of the GC Scored Mental Health Manifesto, and we talked about fruits or outgrowths, what we see, what shows up as in the medical model as depression and anxiety and other types of diagnoses and disorders. We in our model, we talk about those as outgrowths, as fruits, as indicators, right? In no way we are diminishing people's stories. So do not leave here today saying, well, Dr. Larry and the Access Rumor Time Conversation and Vanessa said that, our feelings are not important. That would be a lie. Okay, that would be a lie. I just call it like it is, because that's not what we're saying. We're saying there is no, and we will have evidence to back that up shortly. What we're saying is that depression, anxiety, other psychotic breaks, etc., are results of, right? They're results of. They're not the root causes. And what we want to be a part of the reboot of how we talk about the narrative, how we talk about mental health. And we want to make sure that people are not stigmatized. and people are not overwhelmed by the terminology. They are not, it doesn't continue to create barriers and disenfranchise individuals, so that they do not own their stories, which we believe stories are what we all experience. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. So Sabrina says, like symptoms of the dis-ease.
Dis-ease. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Vanessa, what do you think about this new way of discussing or having dialogue surrounding mental health?
Yeah. So again, based on what you just shared, the new way of discussing is when people have been feeling out of sorts. So maybe they have been experiencing feelings of just feeling down, or haven't been very motivated, maybe not interacting with their families, maybe laying around and just not motivated to move. They might go to a doctor and share those symptoms with a doctor, and based on the medical model, the doctor may say, okay, you are displaying symptoms of depression. And so the new way that we are looking at this is exactly what we have been talking about all along, is the fact that everyone has a life story. As a matter of fact, we have several stories that take place in our life over the course of our lifetime. And the stories that we experience, they play out in how we interact with ourselves, how we interact with others. And so what we have been saying is that for each story, we have to learn to recognize what is going on in our lives. What is the story that is playing out in our lives at this particular time? How do we understand that story? How do we understand how that story is impacting us? And then how are we managing that? And so, for instance, in the example that I just gave, where someone might go to a doctor and the doctor might say that they are experiencing symptoms of depression, what we are saying is that that person's story at that time might be that he or she has lost his or her job and is really feeling depressed or feeling symptoms of lack of motivation or just low mood, because that person now is grappling with, how am I going to care for my family? How am I going to keep a roof over my head? How am I going to put food on the table? Which is causing this person to experience those symptoms of low mood and not being motivated and feeling sad. And so it is about recognizing and understanding what the story is, what is happening in my life at this time, so that I understand what I need to do to manage that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So so what we're saying is that what we see, those emotions, the emotion of sadness, the emotion of maybe being depressed, feeling depressing, you're having feelings of sadness, feelings of worry, anxiousness, anxiety. Those are emotions. They're not disorders. They're indicators. They're coming to tell you and to tell the physician and to tell your family members, to tell others around you, your teachers, whomever you're engaging with, there is something going on. You know, there's a lot of talk, and I quote it as well, and it's a reality. The mental health of the children and youth in the US, and I know across the globe, has increased since COVID, right? Since COVID, since the pandemic. So is now in the state of emergency, right? They're calling it a mental health emergency. And is it really a mental health emergency? Or is it us as humans trying to make sense, getting this messaging, right? Because remember, we said it's an indicator. So the feelings of anxiousness, the feelings of sadness, the feelings of isolation, all of those are in response to a pandemic that we just had. We were isolated. We lost people. We lost learning time. We lost socializing time. We lost money. We lost living spaces. We lost food. Yes, we're supposed to be sad. It is normal to be anxious because you're now worried. So it's not a diagnosis. It shouldn't be a disorder, because when we take what is life's normal challenges and put a diagnosis on it, what it does, it creates, as we know, stigma, but it also adds another layer of burden on the individual. So now I don't have food. Now I lost my job. Now I'm divorced or divorcing. And now, on top of all of that, I am told that I have a brain disease, which is not true, right? And we will share some more about that later on once we get this video ready. But why have we taken for all these years? And in my research and what I've been reading and listening to and understanding, is that there is not correct link, and this is from psychiatrists and many other people in the field of mental health. There is no brain disease that causes depression or anxiety. It is about our environment, what's happening in our environment. And I just saw a quote, Aisha put in the chat, which goes perfectly with what our framework is and what we're talking about right now. And she said that she saw a quote today that said, "We spend too much time diagnosing mental illness and not enough time diagnosing the school system, homes, communities, and environments that contribute to the symptoms." And that's spot on. That is spot on. That is what we're talking about today. And Dr. Carolyn Leaf said in one of her presentations, and she's a neurocognitive psychologist, and I think she's South African, and she's written many books, interviewed many people, professionals in the field. And this is what she says: you do not have a brain disease if you are feeling depressed, anxious, or having a psychotic break. These are not brain diseases. They are a result of adverse life experiences, our life stories.
And so Yvonne, one of the things I wanted to jump in and just add to what you were just saying is that as human beings, we have a need to try to control our situations. So we want to understand what's going on so that we know how to control it.
Right.
And so if we ourselves are not sure what's happening, then we go to the doctor with all of these examples that you just gave, right? And so the doctor might use a medical model to say, okay, you are depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, again, as human beings, what we tend to do then is like, oh, okay, that's what it is. But what we have to start learning and understanding is that our mind is trying to work through this. And so what our minds will do is use the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It will use our brains, and it
Mm-hmm.
will use our bodies
Mm-hmm.
to store all of these toxic experiences that we have in our life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. It
So
does.
the
Mm-hmm.
mind uses what is available to it
Mm-hmm.
in order to try to understand what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
To make
again, we
sense.
use
To make
our
sense.
minds, our brains,
Mm-hmm.
and our body.
Mm-hmm.
But as you said earlier, we have to start to understand that the changes that we are seeing that are happening in our
Mm-hmm.
minds based on what is happening in our environment,
Mm-hmm.
in our lives, the changes that we are seeing in our bodies, these are results of
Mm-hmm.
what is going on in our environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They are
Yeah,
not the cause
exactly.
of what is happening to us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but they are the result of what has happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it shows up as sadness. It shows up as, you know, uncontrolled worry and anxiety and, you know, maybe some type of acting out, some type of behavioral demonstration of what is going on in our environment. And as Aisha rightly said, it is important, it is very important for us to shift, you know, and that's one of the things that the cultivating seed system framework does. We shift the focus from fruit picking, and like we said earlier, one of the definitions that we use is in our mental health manifesto. It's talking about diagnoses, labels, all of those are seen as fruits. They are a result of, they are outgrowths of, they are the end result, right? So we cannot continue, and I'm sure I said this on this program before, we cannot continue to pick the fruits. Okay, let's just, you know, give some medication for depression or anxiety. Let's label it. Let's, you know, do all kinds of things with the fruits.
Mhm.
Let's pick it and throw it away, and then not pay attention to what's happening at the root. What's happening, what are the essential growth elements that are either in short supply, right? We think of agriculture, think of cultivating, think of a plant or a tree. When that is happening, when a tree is planted, you nurture it, you put the seed in the ground, and that goes through that germination period, and it's in the dark, but you're watering it, you're putting fertilizer. Those are essential growth elements. Then it starts the rain and the nitrogen and all of that stuff. Then the CO2, when the leaves start coming up and the rest of the plant starts showing itself, there are essential growth elements that are required so that this tree could become a healthy, productive tree.
Mhm.
And productive meaning is bearing fruits. The roots are really getting stabilized in the ground. The fruits are coming out. So you don't label the fruits in isolation. The fruits are a result of what was done at the root level and in the environment surrounding this tree. but then we do this. That's what we do with humans. That's what we do with each other, right? We have this expectation that somebody is feeling anxious. We give them, say, oh, take this pill, but not paying attention. Why are you feeling anxious? What are you thinking about? What are your thoughts? What has been, helping them to rumorize? What has been your thinking pattern about what you're feeling, right? Remember, feelings are indicators, not disorders. So we want to teach individuals how to rumorize. Let's recognize what your thoughts are. Let's recognize what your interactions are. Let's recognize what your mindsets or your beliefs are. Let's recognize your emotions.
Something you just said, sparked a thought in me when you said, we take pills to help manage our emotions, but that is just a temporary fix, right? So when we take these pills, then we don't think about what our situation is.
Well, is it really that we don't think about it? We take the pills. The pills doesn't change the issue that it doesn't change you getting a job or not having a job. It doesn't change the marriage, the marriage issues. It doesn't change your kids acting the fool. It doesn't change that you ain't got no money.
Right.
So the pills are not doing anything but making you believe.
It's a band-aid. It's a temporary fix.
It's a fix for you feeling.
Yeah.
It's not a fix for your situation.
The situation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's some comments in the chat.
So we have Anna says our focus is on getting a diagnosis for the way we feel. And once we receive the diagnosis, we attribute everything happening to the diagnosis. I feel X. So it's the depression, and that's it. We are not encouraged to dig deeper.
And so let's talk about that a little bit, because so this is how labeling and diagnosing disempowers and disenfranchises us as people. I have a story, you have a story, we have multiple stories. I get my story diagnosed, labeled. Then my mind, as Anna says, oh, I don't have a job. I'm not treating my relatives, my family members nicely. Well, it's depression. I'm just depressed. So because of that, I have now disassociated myself from my story and abdicated, right? Just totally remove myself from my story. I'm not being empowered. I'm being actually disempowered to believe that I don't have anything to do with my life situation. Therefore, I can't even solve my own situation, which is not true. Which is not true. So go ahead. Let's see what else we have.
So Catherine says we have to relearn new ways of describing how we are feeling, because for generations, the medical fraternity and others have programmed us with these negative diagnoses that don't get to the root of our problems. So we are more frustrated and more depressed.
Yeah. And that is the case, right? The number of suicides, the number of depression, the percentage of children and youth who are depressed has increased. Adults, it's the same thing, right? And we have been using this model, this medical model, for over 50 years. Over 50 years. and the number of people suffering from depression and anxiety is increasing. So there has to be some pause. We have to, as a society, just stop it. Just stop it. Okay? Because what are we doing? We don't want to take the time, like Catherine said, we do not want to take the time to do the digging and the excavating because we want somebody else to do the work. But we have to do it, people, because we will continue along this path if we do not reconceptualize what we consider to be mental health disorders, which are really people's life stories. We have to change. We have to change. Thank you, Catherine. What's the next comment?
And so, yeah, so I just want to, before I read the next comment, to say, is that we really have to change the narrative from like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me to what is going on? What has happened to me? What has happened to me that is causing these things, that is causing me to feel the way that I am feeling?
Yeah.
Because we have to understand that our lives are products of our experiences.
Yeah.
And those experiences impact on how we show up in the world, how we interact with other people, how we interact with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
so Betty writes, so start with the question, why? Why am I experiencing this? Absolutely. And she says the 5 whys, WHYS, the 5 whys technique for getting to the root cause comes to mind for her.
And Betty, I don't know if you've been on our show before, but what comes to mind for me is the RUMERTIME process. That is a comprehensive, cyclical, 5-step social emotional problem solving strategy that helps individuals move from unconscious to conscious living, from inter and interpersonal imbalance to balance. And you start with recognizing, first identifying what am I thinking about this story? What am I thinking about myself in this story? What am I thinking about in others in this story? So what are my thoughts? You want to identify, you want to list,
acknowledge
and acknowledge and admit to, because you cannot manage anything. You can't even get to the whys until you know the list, the what. Exactly. You can't get to the whys until you know the what. And for too long, our society has made this, they've taken our stories away from us. They've taken it away and we've just continued to give it to them. And then they've made it so confusing, so mystical, and so, oh, this is what is happening. Oh,
or believing that everybody else has the answer for what is going on with us.
Yeah. And made it so that it is inaccessible. Inaccessible. And we just have to simplify it. And that's what GC Scored has done, right? GC Scored has simplified the process to reclaiming your story, and being the architect of your the solution to your story, because you have what you need to get the problem solved. You have what is needed. And if you don't have it, you know how to access it, right? So yes, the RUMERTIME process is the place to begin, And we have the free and confidential tele wellness support, which is at the Listening Oasis Wellness Space. And we have trained wellness champions, individuals who would listen and help you rumorize your story. It's your story. We don't diagnose anybody because we believe that people's stories are their stories. And it doesn't deserve a diagnosis. It just deserves someone to listen. That's it. Right? And so that's what we do. And we're also, in November, we're offering a course where basically the course is, It's My Story. It's my story. And we're going to teach individuals how to rumorize their story. It's a 12-hour course, and more information will be coming to you regarding that. But it's your story. It's your story, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Tell it boldly without apology. That's what we say. All right, so we want to give you some additional information to help you understand. It's not just, Yvonne and Vanessa with big mouths talking. So we have some other people who have done some research on this topic, and we want to share it with you. So Kenty, we can let's share the video now.
Hi, I'm Dr. Caroline Leaf, and welcome to my podcast, Cleaning Up the Mental Mess. This is part 8 in a series of basic concepts that I'm teaching you or telling you about that I've been teaching. So go watch the others, because all of them build on each other. Today, I'm going to be talking about the concept of that we need a new health narrative for mental health. We need a new way of talking about mental health. We need to focus on the fact that we don't have brain diseases if we're feeling depressed or anxious or having psychotic breaks, that this is not a brain disease. This is a result of adverse life experiences. Every experience that we have will use our brain, because the mind uses the brain to store the life experiences. The mind uses the body to store the life experiences, and our mind uses our mind to store the life experiences. So we have a collective combination of experience built within the mind, brain, and body. So if our experience is toxic, this has a toxic impact on the brain and the body. So the changes that we see in the brain and the body will be the result of an issue, as opposed to the cause of an issue. Now, this is not to say that things like traumatic brain injury and neurological issues like brain tumors and various different neurological diseases that we know exist, like Alzheimer's and so on. This does not to say that those aren't neurological issues that can create mental health issues, because we know that that is the case. Any illness in our body can impact our mental health. Cancer, diabetes, tumors, traumatic brain injuries. What we need to do, though, is distinguish between what happens to us in life, which impacts our mental health, the impact of that on our body, deal with that, and then things that are neurological and physical that are then playing back into our mental health. We need that separation. They've been all blended under the same umbrella of mental health. And the other side of that is that it's almost as though we have to have a disease label to honor the impact and the intensity of something like depression and psychotic breaks and anxiety, which are huge. I mean, can be absolutely incapacitating, down to just the basic, more or less incapacitating things, but just having mild depression and feeling mild anxiety and feeling overwhelmed and burnt out. These are all very real. In fact, they're so real that they need more honoring, and just saying that they are a disease label is not enough. So the model that works for the physical brain and body of diagnosis and are based on symptoms, leading back to a biological cause, and then a treatment that is biological works incredibly well for the brain and the body, and the impact of the mind on the brain and the body. But it doesn't help when we look at a person's mental health state. So in other words, where a person is feeling extreme depression or anxiety or burnout or overwhelm or psychotic breaks or up and down emotions or just battling and suicidal, etc. That model doesn't work because it takes that person's story and reduces it down to something that's purely biological. And after 40 years of this model and billions of euros and dollars spent on and pounds spent on research trying to track down the chemical imbalance or the biological cause or the neurobiological correlate hasn't panned out. In fact, the research shows that it's made things worse because what we're not considering is a person's story. We have to look at a person in context of their environment, which includes their socioeconomic, their financial status, their political, their nurturing, their family environment, what they have access to, the things they're going through, their job. So it's not so much what is wrong with you and diagnosing and labeling, because you can't take someone's, for example, if someone is having a problem at work or they've lost their job or they can't get another job so they can't feed their family and would make them incredibly depressed. You can't diagnose that and say you have psychotic depression, for example, and because that diagnosis implies there's a physical cause, and there is no physical cause of that. There is a cause in your environment. The cause lies in the fact that you don't have a job anymore and can't feed your family and are facing being thrown out of your home and all the frightening things that go with that. Or you've had years of childhood trauma and it's coming out. Or you've had a parent who didn't parent you like they should have and that coming out. In other words, or you're living under constant racism and constant concern and worry for your children and being in a very racist society and all these different kinds of things, we have to consider those. So when someone presents with depression and anxiety, we say, what is wrong with you? And we look at a symptom checklist and we try and diagnose. We mislead people because then it seems like they, on top of that job loss or abuse or whatever, now suddenly they also have a brain disease.
Right. Okay. So thank you. That's what we're talking about, right? We are in alignment with, and she's in alignment with what we have been preaching for forever. And so she's done a lot of the research and she's worked with Dr. Carolyn Leaf. She's worked with multiple psychiatrists, psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists, all types of individuals who study the mental health, and those are the conclusions. So we have to reboot. As we come to the end of Mental Health Awareness Month, we don't come to the end of mental health, right? I think one of the reasons we wanted to do this discussion today is to help individuals everywhere. And this is what we do with GC Scored, right? Is to increase access, to educate, equip, and empower individuals to be able to use the RUMERTIME process so that they can be their own conscious problem solvers and life coaches. Because you can, but we have to make sure, those of us who are in a position of not holding certain types of knowledge, we have to make sure that we don't keep that knowledge to ourselves. It's pointless, right? It's pointless. All right.
Okay, so we have a question from Catherine. What do you think creates emotional outbursts in children at a young age?
Well, based on our discussion and what GC Squad believes, is things happening in the environment, right? What's happening with, Yuri Bronfenbrenner, this is some education here again. he developed the ecological systems theory, and he talks about the different ecosystems, the different levels of the ecosystem. There's the individual, and then we have the micro, the meso, the exo, the chrono, and macro. And each system, even with the small child, even with an infant, who is the individual, that child influences and impacts the home, the parents, the school, the community, and is impacted by all of those systems as well. It may not be a direct impact, but there is some impact. So whatever is happening with in the family system is impacting that child, right? And I mean, I don't have enough information, but just in general, you can't first and foremost give a label. You have to look at all the systems that are influencing and impacting that family, which is the family system, the community system, the workplace system, because the parents may be having issues at work, the marital system, the marriage system. You have to look at all of that. Living arrangements, all of that. And then also their physiology, right? Is something going on in the child's body physiologically that, he or she may be in pain. There may be some physiological issue going on, and you need to rule that out. So we have to look. We can't take shortcuts anymore. We have to stop. And a shortcut is putting a label, right? Let's give a label, because that will be called, EBD, right? Emotional behavior disorder, right? So we have to stop being so quick to label and look at all the systems that are impacting this child and causing this child to have these emotional outbursts. Because as we know in the RUMERTIME process, that feelings have no intellect. They are influenced by our thinking and what is happening in our environment, right? So that's how we have to change our mindset. Once we change our mindset, our behaviors, right? Because we also have a quote, behind every behavior is a belief. And if our behavior is to label immediately, that is because we believe that the label is what is the whole story, and that is not true. All right. So, Vanessa, what do you want to say?
Yeah, so I just really want to invite the audience we have a little bit of time left. And so I want to invite you to ask your questions. What are you thinking about what we are saying? This is very different than, not for us,
No.
right? Not for RUMERTIME, because this is what we have been saying all along, right? But just in terms of your understanding, we're just wondering, what are you thinking about everyone having a story and their story being impacted by their environment and how that is playing out in their lives? And so again, yeah, we just want to encourage you to take, the few minutes that we do have left to ask your questions of us. And while we are waiting on that, the thing that I will add, Yvonne, is we have to learn how to start honoring the stories, our own life stories.
Yes.
And how do we do that? So we do that, number one, by exactly what you said is number one, we have to acknowledge what is going on in our life. We have to recognize and then dig deeper to understand how our environment is impacting us. And so for all of the stories that we have in our lives, you know, those stories have happened. So we cannot change the stories. But what we can do is change how those stories impact our future.
Present and future.
Our present and future.
And future, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's critical that we shift our focus. And so that we could use a different approach to empowering, equipping, educating, and engaging individuals to be their own problem solvers and life coaches. Yes.
And the other thing that we have to do is we have to be intentional about learning to manage how we interact with the story. We have to do that on a daily basis.
Yeah. And understand, go ahead.
No. Well, what I was going to say is understand too, is like when we do that, because sometimes like our stories are very painful. And instead of leaning into it to work through it, we stand back
and run away from it.
And sometimes we run away by taking those pills.
Right? Yeah, and going and get labeled, right? Because
that's right.
You know, let me just put this in a nice little box and call it whatever. So at least, well, everybody knows what it is. So that's kind of like a hands off. Well, they know I suffer from depression. Right? So I don't have to, they're not going to question me. They're not going to want to sit and help me dig deep, or because she's always depressed, so let's not engage with her. But no, it cannot be used as a tool to keep people away from you, or keep yourself, most importantly, away from you being your best self. And so Sabrina put in the chat, excuse me. Sabrina just told us about at least 7 others were injured. Some shooting at Central Visual and Performing Arts High School. The authorities said the gunman died after exchanging gunfire with the police. She said this just happened. And she says, I feel like the knee-jerk reaction will just say mental health problems instead of environment problems. This is very helpful and timely for today. Absolutely. Because that's what we are used to saying. Oh, mental health. Well, what is that? What are you talking about? Again, it's another label that just, once you say mental health, then we know there's certain things that, okay, if it's mental health, then we know he or she is not going to be responsible. Then we don't have to look at the environmental issues. We don't have to look at, everything. We don't have to look at gun laws. We don't have to look at systemic bias. We don't have to look at under-resourced communities. We don't have to look at privilege. Because it's mental health. So if it's mental health, let's stay away from that. We use it to manipulate, and we use it to create barriers. And what GC Score does is try to increase access to the RUMERTIME process so individuals could problem solve knowing this process, this 5-step process. So visit us at www.everypiecematters.com, Lowe's. If you want to get more of what we do and be engaged, just visit us at www.everypiecematters.com. And on our website, we have all the information you need. You would know how to get in touch with us. And we just want to thank you today for joining us. And we will just read the last few comments in the chat. Loislin said, what you said is true. Your thoughts will have an impact on how you behave. Absolutely. And Caroline from Nigeria says, feelings have no intellect. Thanks, Dr. Yvonne. I must be careful with what I am thinking about and that everybody has a story. True talk. All right. Well, again, we told you all it was going to be a powerful and engaging session, and we thank you so much. Loislin says, Loislin always tries to get her people not admit they have a problem because they don't want to be labeled. Exactly. So if we remove this whole idea of labeling, then people would come forward and find that they can problem solve. All right. Thank you all. Carolyn says, those stories affect our future. Thanks, Loislin. Learning to manage how we interact with our stories. Be a problem solver. Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone. And we will see you the second Monday of November. Second Monday of November. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I choose to only think of thoughts. I choose to only think right thoughts. I choose to only think right thoughts. RUMERTIME reflects. When my mind is upset, I can change my mindset. Do not be thrown offset. RUMERTIME.
The RUMERTIME process, and I came across this quote: behind every behavior is a belief.
Whatever setting you go to, whether you're at church, whether you're at school, whether you may be having
I was
an issue
able
at home.
to analyze a little bit more.
Bringing about real positive
In order for me
changes.
to be effective, I have to be reflective. And this training
I gather an appreciation for reflecting. And I
Take it from just something that's inside to getting it in a tangible form, getting it out from.
Fulfilling and rewarding to see the kids who coming and they see growth in them. They became more reflective in their thinking, to see children grow and not just see but to be a part of it.
What I have learned in camp about RUMERTIME is that it's a process for solving problems we face in our
reduces a lot
lives.
of my stress, and then I begin to enjoy and spend time on the things that really make me happy.
I recommend this training to all age, from kindergarten.
Before you do that thing that you'll regret, or say that thing.
If you breathe and think, you should have this training.
I would recommend this to everyone.